showtime. Welcome to the show. Oh, baby, have we got a great show for you tonight. Uri Geller's here. Isn't that fantastic? All the way from Great Britain. He is, of course, for 45 years, I'm reading off the back of his book right now, Uri Geller has been regarded as a show business character, perhaps even a charlatan. We're going to get into that tonight too, folks. But compelling evidence coming to light from declassified documents from a former, are you ready for this, folks? Senior CIA official and scientists who worked for the agency suggest he was the real thing, exhaustively tested and validated by some of the world's leading scientific minds. Now it gets even more deep and profound here. Geller's proven powers led him to be given secret espionage tasks. Yeah, by elements within more than one government intelligence agency, investigating and activating Geller's bizarre X-Files type phenomena was to be seriously disturb many scientists who worked with him, during their rational belief system upside down, forcing them to reevaluate parapsychology. It is my great pleasure, folks, to welcome Uri Geller to the show. Welcome, Uri. How are you tonight, my friend?
Brent, thank you very much for inviting me onto your show. I'm okay, and yes, I'm speaking from a tiny village outside London called Sonning-on-Thames. That's where I live with my family, and I'm now talking to you.
This is wonderful. Shalom, my friend. Now, all Canada wants to know, and all America, especially the northern states, what's the temperature where you are right now?
It has been raining for quite a few days. There's lots of flooding around the UK. I live right on the River Thames, on the banks of the River Thames, but we've never ever been flooded because our house, which is interesting, it's an interesting home. It has been built loosely after the White House in Washington.
Huh.
So it has the pillars. It really does resemble the White House, but of course in much smaller scales. But I'm looking outside. Obviously, it's dark. It's 1 o'clock after midnight here. And I think we're going to speak and talk about very interesting things tonight.
I think so, too. Now, Uri, when I was reading this book, I had no idea that this was part of your past. And let's get into it right away. Can we go back to the 6-Day War in Israel and talk about your experiences right there? Because for me, that could be a pivotal point for you.
Well, yes, it was, Brent, obviously a life-changing moment when tragically I was fighting outside Jerusalem on a hill called the French Hill, and suddenly out of nowhere a Jordanian soldier jumps out from behind a rock holding a weapon at me and about to kill me. We looked at each other straight in the eye, and I was faster than him, otherwise I wouldn't be speaking to you now. And I was just faster pulling the trigger, and I shot him. I killed him. I killed the man. And that changed my life. At the moment, I was so engrossed in the war, there was no time to think. When the man fell, I found myself in a movie. I used to go to lots of American war films, and it was the war, and I was in it. It wasn't real. It was surreal. I jumped on his body. I looked for his diskette. I pulled out his wallet, and then I was wounded myself, and I woke up in Hadassah Hospital, which is right outside Jerusalem. And that's when it dawned on me what I have committed. And obviously this deed, is a kind of a reoccurring dream that follows me since the Six-Day War. And I consider this soldier my brother. He's almost embedded in my soul. And that's how my life was, developing out of that incident. So I think I answered it very bluntly, strongly, and I said the truth.
Very much so. Folks, if you're just joining us, Uri Geller's our guest tonight. He has a new book out called The Secret Life of Uri Geller, CIA Master Spy. Easy way, folks, to get that book and all our other guest books is www.nightfrightshow.com. Just go to the website, click on tonight's guest book cover. That'll take you right to a spot where you can order it from the comfort of your own home. And, of course, it's I'm in Kingston, Ontario, Canada. Tonight's a good night to be doing that. Just settle in, get the coffee going, get the tea going, or a beverage of your choice going, and just settle in, relax. For the next 2 hours, we are going to take you on one profound journey with Uri Geller. Let's go back to Uri now. Uri, you've killed a man. I can't even imagine the profoundness of this, of what has taken place. Did you suffer from, as many troops do that are coming home from Afghanistan here in Canada, as well as the United States and around the world, did you suffer from post-traumatic stress syndrome?
Brent, I don't know if it was exactly that syndrome that I had, but, I've got to go back to my childhood. I came from a very poor family. My mother is actually Austrian. She's related to Sigmund Freud, hence my name is actually Uri Geller Freud in my British passport. My father, God bless him, he was a womanizer, was a very good-looking man. Women ran after him, and he wasn't at home. My mother was a waitress, a seamstress. So already from an early age, I knew that I had to make it. I had to catapult myself out of poverty. And when I discovered that I had unusual talents, or call it abilities or powers, I realized that that's my savior. That's what is going to make Uri Geller successful. I was a positive thinker. I was motivated and inspired to be successful. And then in Cyprus, my mother married a Hungarian Jew who died from heart attack right after, very short time after my mother married him. And we ended up running a bed and breakfast hotel, which turned into an Israeli Mossad spy center or safe house. Mm-hmm. And that's where it all began. I met an Israeli spy called Yoam Shachav. I was maybe 12 years old. I knew he was a spy. I bent a spoon for him. I read his mind. It freaked him out. And he said, Uri, I've got to get you into the Mossad because you just demonstrated things that we need. We want to use your talents. And he instructed me to go to the paratroopers, go to officers' school, and then find him. That's how it all started. Now, after the war,
yes, sir.
I became quite well known in Israel, but I was obsessed. I was obsessed with fame and fortune. I wanted to be a millionaire. I wanted to be famous. And when the CIA took me out of Israel, there were instances where, Brent, I think that I and Frank Sinatra, we were the only two people who had the license to carry 7 weapons on them. I had 7 handguns. So talk about a war syndrome. I used to walk in Manhattan streets with 7 handguns strapped to my body. And that's a great example to make you understand where my psychological makeup was. And yes, I was totally ruthless to other people. I was on an ego trip. I wanted to be the Elvis Presleys of the psychic world, and I became bulimic. I had very strong bulimia for a whole year, and yeah, I'm trying to tell you everything in a nutshell. And it was John Lennon that saved my life, because I circulated around these people. I wanted to emulate them. I wanted to be the Elton John, the John Lennons, and as I said, the Elvis Presley. And I went to their parties. I befriended them. And when I looked like an Auschwitz survivor, because I used to go into their famous and expensive restaurants. I would devour all the food, all the desserts, but I didn't want to gain weight, so I snuck out secretly. Everything was secret, and I stuck my finger down my throat, and I threw up, and this became an addiction. So, yeah, I guess I was screwed up after that war.
It makes perfect sense. I mean, war is not a normal environment for people to live in, let's face it. I mean, you're on the edge every single day of your life. Now, I think it only makes perfect sense that those emotions, those feelings have to come out somehow, and sometimes perhaps they come out in self-destructive mannerisms, if you will. Let's go back a little bit. Now, what was it like when the Mossad approached you? What were your views on Israel at the time?
Well, you must understand, Brent. I'm an Israeli. I'm a Sabra. Sabra means a person who is born in Israel.
That's right.
And Israel is my nation. I'm devoted to Israel, to the cause of Israel, to the safety of Israel. And let me just plug the book, because you said it's my book. Let me just correct you. The book has been written about me
by Jonathan Martins.
A British journalist who writes for the Financial Times and The Guardian. These are obviously very prestigious newspapers. And the book is so mind-blowingly revealing and shocking in a way that I urge you to read it, whether you're just not a government employee, but any policeman or an army, if you're in the Army, Navy, Air Force, if you're a CIA agent or an FBI agent or a policeman, you have to read this book. It is just shocking how and what governments would do in order to amass more information. And of course, with all this NSA controversy now, it's appropriate. But when the Mossad approached me, let me explain you how it happened. Yoav Shacham was the spy that I met in our safe house in Nicosia in Cyprus. He was so impressed that he told Mayor Amit about me. Mayor Amit was the head of Mossad. Mayor Amit introduced me to Aharon Yariv, who is the head of military intelligence. Aharon Yariv introduced me to Moshe Dayan, who everyone knows was the defense minister and military hero. Moshe Dayan introduced me to Arik Sharon, who just passed away. And then I was introduced to Golda Meir, the Prime Minister of Israel. So you can imagine, I indeed, I was around and with the leaders of Israel. And, I may
add, you're at the most critical times, Six-Day War and also the following Yom Kippur War. Thank you for helping me out there. Israel has always had a knife at its throat, always.
Yeah, we, for not for centuries, but for thousands of years, we've been struggling to exist. And but when the Mossad asked me to do certain things for them, I was very excited because that's what I wanted. I wanted to be in show business. I wanted to bend spoons and read minds and be on television. Yet I had this other darker world, the black world, the secret world, and I loved it as much as I loved being on television. So, of course, I said yes. And I remember that already when I was 12, I was working for the Mossad because Yoav Shacham, the Israeli spy who lived in our place in Nicosia, he would go venture out to spy in Arab countries, and he would send me letters back which contained top secret information, and he instructed me to get on my bicycle and cycle to the Israeli consulate and hand them over to the head consul. So this was exciting. This was James Bond. Again, I was living the movies. So when it actually became true and I got missions to execute, I loved it. And then came in the CIA. They heard from an Israeli scientist who had links to the Mossad and the CIA about me. And the CIA, the American Defense Department, they were very concerned that the Russians were ahead of them in psychical research, and they needed to find someone. They needed to validate this arena. And they got me out of Israel straight into Stanford Research Institute, where I was tested for quite a long time. And there's actually a BBC movie, a documentary based on the secret work that I've done on my website, which is urigeller.com, and it's called The Secret Life of Uri Geller. I think you'll be astounded when you see that documentary. So
it is very good, by the way, folks, and I speak from personal experience. Terrific.
And that's how it started.
That's how it all started. Now, were your parents aware of what was taking place? You were 12 years old in Hungary. Were they aware that?
No, my mother. Hold on. My mother left Hungary in the end of the 30s and settled in Israel. And my father, she met in Budapest. She got married to my father in Budapest in the grand old synagogue. And then they ran away from the Nazis, obviously. And so I was born in Tel Aviv, but throughout my career of becoming famous and being known for a very strange and bizarre and quirky talent, my father was very proud of me, of course. And I promised my mother that I will stop her from working and buy her a television set, a black and white one. I remember that so vividly. And then I promised to take her with me when I left Israel. So suddenly I became so well known around the world from one television show that I got my mother to live with us in New York. She had no idea that I had a double life. Of course not. I told no one.
Wow, that's espionage, folks. We're speaking with Uri Geller tonight. The book by Jonathan Margolis is called The Secret Life of Uri Geller, CIA Master Spy, and that's what we're discussing tonight. All the ops that perhaps Mr. Geller has been on, perhaps not. We're going to get into some of those later on. www.nightfrightshow.com. Just click on tonight's guest book cover, and that's going to take you right to a spot where you can order the book online from the comfort of your armchair. Folks, if you're listening right now, go and get yourself a pen and paper. I'm going to give you a couple of numbers right now. One is that telephone number that you can call in and ask Mr. Geller some questions that may be on your mind. The other one is a simple Skype address. Again, if you're interested in speaking with Mr. Geller, I'll get you on the line. And here we go. The telephone number is 310-421-4053, 310-421-4053. And the Skype address is Freedom Screen Freedom2, FREEDOMSCREEN2. Let's go back to Uri. This is a fascinating subject matter because you started to talk about remote viewing. And I had taken a remote viewing class at Laurentian University in Sudbury, Canada. And I'll tell you, folks, it works. Not in the way that you think, and I'm sure Yuri will be able to correct me on several things, but I'll tell you a quick story. There was 4 girls, 4 boys in the classroom, and of course we were asked to bring in photographs. The teacher sealed them without any of us seeing them into an envelope. We were told to focus on the envelope and draw what we thought we saw. So the girls all drew flowers. I drew a limousine and an upside-down triangle. So we couldn't figure out what was going on, so we opened up the picture, and it was one of the girls had been a bridesmaid, so they were all holding flowers, of course. In the background was a limousine, so I scored a big brownie point on that one. But we still couldn't figure out what the triangles were, because every single guy in the class had drawn an upside-down triangle. And we were looking, then it dawned on us. Cleavage. So there you have it. Even when we're remote viewing, men are pigs. Let's go back to Uri. Now, Uri, when you were in the Stanford Research Institute, what were some of the things that they were testing you on? And I understand that you did more than exceptionally well. I mean, you just blew them right out of the water.
Yes, what they wanted to validate are my telepathical abilities more than spoon bending. As a matter of fact, I couldn't bend the spoon under laboratory control conditions at Stanford Research Institute. Don't know why, but every time I tried to do it under control conditions, it didn't work. The spoons bent in the cafeteria, phenomenon happened. I mean, incredible things happened there. I'll tell you of a weird one.
Sure, please.
One of the scientists that tested me beside Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff was Edgar Mitchell, who was the 6th man to walk on the moon, an astronaut. And we were walking in the corridor towards the cafeteria, and suddenly we heard a clang on the wall, almost like someone threw something against the wall. And onto the floor falls a little piece of something. So Ed kind of bends down and picks it up, and he holds it in his hand, and he says, wow, you know, I know this little piece. It looks familiar. Anyhow, we just didn't know what it was and where it came from. But while we were having our desserts, now hang on, because this is so weird that you have to believe that it did happen. So try to brush away all skepticism aside, which we'll talk about too. But I was eating my ice cream, and I lifted the spoon with a scoop of ice cream on it, put it in my mouth, and suddenly I feel inside my mouth a metallic object. So I spit it out. And Edgar Mitchell's face ashens. He picks up the little piece of metal that I spat out, and he pulls out the other piece from his pocket and puts them together. And he says, hey folks, you believe it or not, this was my tie pin, and I lost it 5 years ago on a beach in Florida.
Oh my God.
Now, you know, talk about materializations, dematerializations, apportations, whatever you want to call it. It did happen, and this was, around people who were quite skeptical about my powers in the beginning. I don't know why it happened. Maybe because he asked me to try to materialize a Hasselblad camera that he left on the moon. If you didn't know this, most astronauts were instructed to leave heavy equipment on the moon to make their voyage back lighter. But maybe that was in the back of my mind, which I also couldn't do. But the tests were very grueling and very hard for me, but I had time. So they would lock me in shielded rooms, and I would have to, like you, I would have to guess drawings that were hidden in opaque envelopes that I was not allowed to touch. I had to read the mind of a computer. And we're talking about the early 70s here. I'll never forget the drawing. The computer chose to draw a kite with a tail with little ribbons, and I drew it exactly almost the same size as the computer drew it. I had to try to levitate a little 1 gram weight, which was under a bell jar. I had to look for water and metal ball bearings hidden in metal cans. They were extremely interesting experiments, and they were under controlled conditions. So even if I was a magician, or if I was the greatest magician in the world, there was no way to cheat there. And of course, these experiments were paid by the American Defense Department, and then they were published. They were published in one of the most prestigious scientific magazines in the world called Nature. And that started the controversy. My goodness, I guess I must be one of the most controversial individuals in the world, because I was attacked by skeptics from the first day I came out on the scene in Israel. I was called, a magician, a liar, a charlatan, for everything that you can imagine. And when I was young, Brent, I thought that controversy will destroy me. And it was a Canadian magician called James Randi who kind of made his life mission to debunk Uri Geller. And I hope I'm not rumbling on and on.
Not at all. No, not at all, sir.
But it was the Johnny Carson show that Johnny Carson invited me onto his show, and everyone told me, if you get on Johnny Carson, you made it in America. And as a young Israeli, and I wasn't earning that much at that time, it was for me to become famous instantaneously was like a mini miracle. And there I was. I got on the show, and I didn't realize that I walked into a trap. And Johnny was an amateur magician. He didn't believe in me at all. And I sat on that show humiliated for 22 long minutes. And, the spoon bent very little, and Johnny was sneering and making fun out of me and, pressing me to demonstrate. To make a long story short, I thought that I was destroyed in America, and the only thought that kind of flashed through my mind is, Uri Geller, go back to your hotel, pack up, and go back to Israel. And I went back to my hotel devastated, Brent. I fell on the bed, fell asleep, and the next morning the phone wakes me up, and the operator tells me, Mr. Geller, I have a Merv Griffin on the line for you. And of course I knew of Merv Griffin.
Sure.
And I said, I mean the Merv Griffin? And she said, that's what he says. I got on the line, and it was Merv Griffin, and he said to me, Uri Geller, I saw you last night on Johnny Carson. I want you on my show this week. And to me, that's when it dawned on me that there is no such thing as bad publicity. As long as they spell your name correctly, as long as they write about you, that's what makes controversy. And controversy is priceless. And I received it from the skeptics on a silver platter. And I thank the skeptics. I have to thank the James Randis of the world for boosting my career, Brent.
Understood. Now, when you're doing spoon bending or any of the other miracle, I call them miracles that you do, is there a symbiotic converging of your energies? Is that what you do? Do you try to get into the energy of a spoon and manipulate it that way?
Brent, I don't even know how I do what I do. From my perspective of my philosophical outlook on the world is very simple. I'm a religious man. I believe in God. I know that I believe inside my heart that there is a creator out there. I'm not a miracle worker. I'm not a guru. I'm not a healer. But I was given, or I was born with a weird talent, spoon bending. Now, no matter how trivial it sounds, and skeptics try to sneer this and kind of denigrate it, but I managed to instill spoon bending into world culture. I mean, look at movies like The Matrix, where Keanu Reeves walks into the Oracle and children teach him how to bend spoons. Johnny Cash sings about spoon bending. Kenny Rogers, Michael Stipe, it's incredible. Mentioned in movies, in big bands sing about me like Incubus. So yes, I'm bragging now, but no matter how you look at it, it's a weird and bizarre act. And when I do it, and that to answer your question, I don't really think too much about how to do it. I just talk to the metal. I just instruct the metal to bend. I stroke the spoon, and it bends. And what made Uri Geller so well known around the world is my interactive experiments with people at home. And we can conduct it with your listeners too. If you have me on 2 hours, maybe we'll do an experiment with your listeners, your Canadian listeners, and you will see the reaction. It is rather amazing.
That is terrific. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I'm not unique. I believe we all have certain powers or energies that we don't use, that are dormant in us. And you just have to awaken them. And let me just add the last little thing about how I do it. If we all remember the very famous equation E equals mc squared. Of course, Albert Einstein, with that equation, proved to the world scientifically that everything in the universe is made from energy. Everything. You, me, the phone I'm holding, if you bang the wall or tap the table feels solid to you, but it's not.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
It's energy, and it's just vibrating at a certain frequency that to us feels solid. So even our thoughts are energy. What I'm saying by this is, and he also, by the way, continued to prove, Einstein, that energy cannot be destroyed. So if I'm holding a spoon, that's energy. And if I can direct my thought pattern or my thought energy into the spoon and wish it to bend, it bends. Why not? I don't really believe that it's against the laws of science. I think that it's part of science. And right now, maybe only I can do it, but maybe 1,000 years from now, children will be doing it. Everybody will be reading minds.
I'm going to ask you a series of questions based on that. Now, you know, I go back to the biblical times, the Torah, and I think right away of Moses. And would he have had some of those powers, do you think, that you are instilled with?
Well, if you remember, I don't want to be compared to Moses or Jesus or any of those holy figures.
Yes, sir.
But if you remember, Moses walked into the Pharaoh's palace, and the Pharaohs were holding walking sticks, and they turned into snakes. And Moses held his walking stick, and it turned into a snake which devoured the Egyptians' Pharaoh's snakes. It's an amazing story, and the Bible is riddled with miracles. And of course, you've got the skeptics. I cannot say that all skeptics are atheists, but many of them are. So if one is an atheist, obviously it's hard for that person to believe anything that is written in Holy Scriptures. But I do believe, and I think that throughout the thousands of years and centuries back, certain people who probably demonstrated unique abilities that looked like miracles, maybe they were using some type of mind energy. So that answers your question.
It sure does. And I think all gifts like that emanate from God, so I don't see a disconnect there. Now, as an extension of that, I was going to ask you if, we go back to the 6-Day War again. Is this a curse on you? Have you ever cursed God for giving you this gift and said, I don't want this, take it away?
No, never, ever.
Okay.
For me, it's like, Frank Sinatra being able to sing, basketball players being able to, put the ball into the basket, and any talent out there. I compare my abilities to their talents and abilities. Mine is just a freaky one, a strange one, a bizarre one, and a quirky one. And it's very close to the magic world because, after I came out with my powers or my abilities, tens of thousands of magicians imitated me. They copied me. There are many magicians who do spoon bending much better than I do it. I'm quite astounded at some of the demonstrations by magicians that I see. And I respect every magician. Magicians don't like to hear from me that I call my abilities powers. They want me to say, oh, it's all magic and it's all trickery. But that's where I draw fire. This is why I'm so controversial. I'm also, if I may say this to you, Brent, shamelessly, I'm also a king of PR. I am a great publicist, a natural one. No one taught me publicity. I have never had agents or managers or PR people ever running my life. I also never read a magic book. I've never seen a magic show. The only magic show I saw was Siegfried and Roy, who I missed the plane in Las Vegas, and I went to see them. So I'm not a magician. Now, by saying that, I immediately cause controversy, and I love that. That's what protected the darker side, the espionage side.
Why do you call that the darker side?
Because it's deep black. I had to do. First of all, this is very important for me to say. When I was asked to do negative things for certain intelligence agencies, I always refused. Never, ever have I taken on a mission that ended up in hurting others. I always did something positive. And I'll give you some examples.
Please, sir.
For instance, when the Americans had a problem with the Russians to convince them to sign the nuclear arm reduction treaty, they called me in. I was briefed in London by Ambassador Max Kempelman, who was a very important figure in Washington.
It sure was, yeah.
He brought with him Senator Claiborne Pell, who was the head of the American Foreign Relations Committee, who believed in paranormal abilities. And I remember Al Gore was with me in Geneva. He took me to Geneva. And my task was to bombard the mind of Yuli Vorontsov, who was the head of the nuclear negotiating team of Russia. And the instructions were bombard his mind to sign. So I walked up to Yuli Vorontsov, who didn't know who I was, got very close to his head, and I did exactly what I was told, telepathically. And I know it sounds so science fiction-y, but it really happened.
You, it's kind of scary for me to think I'm speaking with somebody with this ability.
Yeah, but it did really happen. Not only this, but many, many other missions and targets I got. I got close to Yuli Vorontsov's head, maybe 4 inches away, and I just continuously bombarded him telepathically with sign, 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 sign. And they signed. Of course, I can't take full credit because there are other diplomats and dignitaries involved. But I had very unusual missions. One of them, for instance, and this was top secret until President Carter blew the secret out.
Yes.
A Russian plane crashed in Zaire. Top secret codes on board. And the CIA wanted to get their plane before the Russians did. But it crashed under the canopy of the jungle in Zaire. Now, at that time, there were satellites, but they weren't sophisticated enough to read what's under a canopy of a jungle. Today, we have satellites that can go through almost anything. And President Carter was asked by a student after he finished his presidency in a university, President Carter, did anything unusual happen while you were the President of the United States? And he stood on the stage and he said, he thought for a moment and said, oh yeah, a Russian plane crashed in Zaire and psychics found the plane for us. So your remote viewing story is absolutely real. Again, in an indirect way, I started the remote viewing program for the Americans because of the telepathy. And remote viewing can be taught. If you're intuitive, you can become a remote viewer.
I imagine there's a lot of responsibility that coincides with that. As you mentioned before, you refuse to do anything bad, as you call it, as opposed to doing something positive. And I would think by urging that fellow to sign this agreement, you may have helped save mankind from catastrophe.
Well, I don't want to go there because your words kind of amplify my existence into the realms of a miracle worker. But I think that throughout the last 40 years, I did have missions that no doubt in my mind saved life, no doubt in my mind. And some of them are the dark ones, which I refuse to do. I can give you an example. I won't mention who asked me to do it and in which country, but I was led into, in a laboratory, I was led into a white room. And the room was empty except in the middle of the room stood a large pig. Actually, it was a white pig. And the scientist looks at me and tells me the following. He says to me, Uri, I'm going to go out for lunch. You stay in the room. By the time I come back, I want the pig dead. Stop its heart. And he left. Now, I became a vegetarian in the very early 70s, and I love animals, and his words destroyed everything that I built up in my mind about intelligence services, working for positive missions and so on. I realized that what I was being asked to do was really to see if the power of the mind can kill another human being, because the heart of a pig is kind of similar to a human's heart.
That's right.
And that catapulted me back to the Six-Day War, to the Jordanian soldier, and so on. And that was the catalyst or the trigger for me to catapult out of scientific work, because I myself was a guinea pig. I was being taken from one laboratory, from Stanford, to to the Lawrence Livermore Radiation Labs where they build nuclear weapons, to the American Surface Weapons Center. I mean, I can name you at least 36 of laboratories that I was tested in, and I couldn't take it anymore.
It sounds like you were really regretting getting involved with these guys. I mean, they were disrespecting you from what I can gather as a human being, and they were looking at you more like a Barnum and Bailey character, kind of a freakish thing. Am I correct in that?
No, not exactly, because a scientist's task in life is to be open-minded and to try to go beyond the realms of existing science, contemporary science, and to see what else the human mind can do. Mm-hmm. And because they derive amazing and very important information from that. You know, the last frontier is not space. The last frontier is the mind. And they wanted to explore that. And since I was giving, I was open, I was approachable, I was accessible, and I had this bizarre talent, they wanted, to get the most out of me. And yes, but I did continue, obviously, working for the intelligence agencies, but I refused to do more testing. So that's where I am today. And when you read The Secret Life of Uri Geller by Jonathan Margolis, and by the way, as you said, it's available on your website. You can get it from Amazon.com, and you will discover incredible things that governments would do in order to obtain information. Needless to say, we all heard the controversy of Edward Snowden, who ran away with top secret information, which I'm, by the way, against, very much against, because that can damage and it can actually hurt and kill people on missions and on certain sites that they are operating from. So we discover that our phones are bugged, our emails are read, our text messages are read. We are being watched by Big Brother 24 hours a day. The mobile phone, the cell phone that you carry with you, and probably every person listening to me now has a mobile phone. That is an open microphone to the enemy. Even if you think, I'm going to shut it off, that won't help. It can be activated. They can even activate the film camera. You can be filmed without you knowing it. So in this day and age of Googles and the Twitters and the Facebooks and the satellites and all this amazingly sophisticated technology we have to spy on each other, we have lost our privacy, that's for sure.
Where were you on 9/11, Uri?
Let me go 2 days back.
Sure.
You were talking about the 11th of September, the tragic attack in New York,
yes. Yes.
3 days before that happened, I was with Michael Jackson. Just to put you in the picture, let's just talk a little about Michael.
God bless him.
Michael was 15 when he came to see me demonstrate my powers or doing my show at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles. I had no idea it was there. After my show, an usher came up to me and she said, "Mr. Geller, do you know that Michael Jackson sat right there? He was in disguise, but we recognize him." And I said, "What? You mean the Michael Jackson? He came to see me? Why didn't you tell me that before?" Anyhow, that was the first time I knew that he was interested in, I don't know, call it supernatural powers. Years later, decades later, I was together with Muhammad Al-Fayed. Just so if you don't know who he was the owner of Harrods, the department store, and his son died with Princess Diana in Paris.
A tragedy.
Yeah, and I was there in his country garden, and Michael calls out of the blue because he was working with Dodi Al-Fayed, Muhammad's son, on a movie. And Muhammad says to Michael, "Michael, do you know who is sitting next to me? It's Uri Geller." And all I heard is, over the phone that he was holding in his hand, Muhammad, I heard a shriek, "Uri Geller!" That's what Michael said. "Let me speak to him." So Muhammad handed me the phone, and that's how it all started. Michael was in New York. He said to me to come over. I had a show in New York, and we became friends. And I saw everything. I was one of those people who had the chutzpah, the cheekiness, the empowerment to shout at him when he was, out and taking those things that were given to him by doctors. And I've seen the whole tragedy unfold in front of my eyes. Now, going back to the story, where was I? Just remind me. Why did I jump to Michael Jackson? Do you remember, Brent?
We were talking about 9/11, and you said, "I'm going to go back 2 days beforehand." I was with Michael Jackson.
There I was in New York with Michael Jackson. He was going to perform with Whitney Houston at the, I think it was Madison Square Garden. So the concert was there. Elizabeth Taylor was there. She had some ex-Israeli Mossad agents guarding her, if I'm not mistaken. Everyone was there, and then it happened. The attack came. I believe I left. I went back to London, and I watched the planes hitting the towers in my kitchen on the TV screen. I knew that Michael was there. I called him up. He was on the way out through New Jersey. So, yeah, that's when it all happened. And if you all saw the movie called with George Clooney, what was it called?
The Men Who Stare at Goats?
The Men Who Stare at Goats. Mm-hmm. That was relatively kind of a comedy takeoff from the real thing. But after the 11th of September, after that tragic attack by murderers who are bent on killing us all, the remote viewing program was reactivated.
Oh, really?
Yep. And I'm telling you something that very few people know. You see, because of certain theological reasons, strangely enough, when you see the BBC documentary on my website, The Secret Life of Uri Geller, you will understand why the parapsychological movement in the intelligence services was terminated and taken deep black. And deep black means that nobody knows about it. The press will never find out. Media won't know. Only certain very top secret clearance people would know what is still going on with the remote viewing program.
Oh, we're coming up to break right now, Uri. Folks, Uri Geller. CIA Master Spy, maybe, The Secret Life of Uri Geller. The book is by Jonathan Margolis, www.nightfrightshow.com. Just click on tonight's guest book cover. That'll take you right to a spot. This is incredible. I am absolutely glued to my chair. I have many more questions to ask already. Some about John Lennon, of course. We had touched on him earlier. And this is just riveting news that we have now. Please stick around and join us right after the break. Welcome back, folks. Don't go anywhere. If you're just joining us, Uri Geller's our guest tonight. The book is called The Secret Life of Uri Geller, CIA Master Spy. It is meticulously written by Jonathan Margolis. Easy way to get it, www.nightfrightshow.com. Uri is on the line with us live right now, just outside London, England, where it is 2 o'clock in the morning there, and he's being a super trooper for staying up late and informing us. And he just dropped a bombshell before we took the break, folks. It seems that after 9/11, remote viewing was started up again. Now, Uri, I've got to ask you, was that also with the Mossad? Was that also with not only American intelligence, perhaps British intelligence as well?
Well, I have to be very careful how I answer that, Brent.
Yeah, I don't want to put anybody in danger here, ever.
But I can tell you that the remote viewers who worked for certain intelligence agencies were reactivated. And if you watch the documentary, The Secret Life of Uri Geller, which is available to see free on my website,
yes, sir.
It's the uncensored version, because in England they only showed 60 minutes, the BBC. I guess they didn't want to go into the MOD, Department of Defense film. But you will hear that from the mouth of certain scientists that say that, yes, America needed information fast, and they needed accurate information fast. Therefore, they needed to get all information through every means they had available for them throughout their, spies, eavesdropping, satellites, and so on. And the human mind, the human brain has proved to them in the past that they can rely on remote viewers. So that's what I'm saying. Yes, remote viewers had to do hard work around that time.
Did they reach out to you, or did you reach out to them after 9/11?
They always, when I use the word they, I'm not saying which country and
That's
where,
fine,
but they reach out to you. Of course they do.
Okay,
yeah.
They do. How did you feel about reactivating yourself, so to speak, again?
Brent, I don't want to go there because your questions can open other doors which I don't want to talk about.
No
but I'll tell you this. I can tell you that right now, as we speak, there's no doubt in my mind that certain intelligence agencies do use human beings to bring information through space and time with their mind, which is basically what remote viewing is. And you did it successfully, so you can imagine if you're being trained for a year or two and you sharpen your intuitive energies or forces or talents or skills, then you can really be accurate and bring back information that is not available through the tangible scientific and technological manners.
I have to ask you, and I want to do this, so not putting you on a spot or anything, but I'm imagining that it's better that we don't know what has been prevented than if we do know. How is that for a question?
Yeah, very clever. Look, the terrorist groups around the world, the Al-Qaedas, etc., there's so many. Boko Haram in Nigeria. You probably never heard of Boko Haram, but they kill every day between 10 and 30 people. They break into schools and they murder children day in, day out. They have to be stopped because, as I said, their ideology is to kill anyone who doesn't believe in their belief system. And unfortunately, many of the terrorists are individuals who went to important universities and are clever people. Some of them are scientists. Some of them are pilots. Just think of what I'm saying. Now, what the government's fear today is, and this is why NSA is working so hard, and that's why they're eavesdropping on everyone, because eavesdropping on everyone can lead them somewhere. What they fear is that the know-how, how to put a nuclear bomb in a suitcase is out there. Go to Google, and the Internet can bring everything under your fingertips and in front of you, and there are actually manuals teaching you how to put a nuclear weapon together. It's very complicated and very difficult. It's difficult to maintain. And luckily, that's why one didn't explode yet, and we're stopping it all the time. We're trying to destroy the certain centers where these murderers, the terrorists, are trying to put these things together. So just imagine the damage that can be caused. On the 11th of September, the planes crashed into the buildings and thousands of people were killed, murdered. But can you imagine a small suitcase of nuclear material exploding downtown Los Angeles or Washington or New York or Philadelphia or Toronto or Montreal? You're talking about 30, 40, 50,000 people dying, and then areas closed for years and years from radiation and so on. But this is only one example. There are many other examples that I can't go into that terrorists are working at to kill us, and that has to be stopped. So that, I guess that answers your question.
It sure does. And how do you handle the stress, day-to-day stress and pressure, not only doing what you do in the peripherals, but also you've got relatives back in Israel, and we all know that they're under attack virtually daily. How do you handle that stress and pressure?
It's hard. And you're right. Israel is being attacked daily, but because of the sophistication of our knowledge in the realms of and the arenas of the Internet and computers, and the know-how of how to stop, suicide bombers, we survive. And again, we all heard of the Iron Domes.
Yes, sir.
Just a few days ago, I think 2 rockets were sent into Eilat. Eilat is a tourist resort town in southern Israel, and sadly and tragically, there are about 160,000 missiles aimed at Israel as we speak now. 160,000.
Why does mainstream media stay away from that and not tell the truth? I always feel that there's a bias.
Well, I watch CNN and I watch Fox.
Yes, sir.
And I watch the media. I have to be alert all the time on what's happening around the world. If you watch Fox, you will see, for instance, Governor Huckabee. I hope you know who I'm talking about, but there are certain people like Bill O'Reilly who are key anchormen who are very, very much for Israel, for our existence, and they very much always talk about the issue. But then you've got CNN, and these are my opinions, and I'm stressing that these are my opinions.
That's
but
fine,
the media works on, it's all about money. Brent, you know that.
Yeah.
It's all about money. Who pays for the commercials? Who finances these, big media outlets? Then you have the Democrats. Then you have the Republicans. Then it's politics. It's all about politics. Israel is not very friendly now with America, sadly. We heard Obama sneer at certain world leaders, or I can say it outright because it was in the news. Words were not very nice words were said by Obama about Bibi Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu, who happens to be my friend. I've known Benjamin for 43 years. He actually appears in this documentary and in the book, The Secret Life of Uri Geller.
And that's a great segue. We're going to get to him in 2 seconds. Thank you for that.
So you understand what we're talking about politics here. And that is, we are in a survival mode all the time. We're all the time stopping suicide bombers who are planning to blow up innocent people. And that's not only in Israel. Unfortunately, it's going on in Syria. It's going on in Iraq. It's going on in Afghanistan. How many American and maybe Canadian soldiers lost their lives in the last...
Good friend of mine from Sudbury went over and never...
From where?
Sudbury, Canada.
Yeah.
Number 148. And he was a medic. He was on his way to help civilians. And an IED took him out, and there was just pieces of him left, and God love him.
Yep.
God love him.
And the ideological belief system of the terrorists. No, I'm talking about. I'm directing my words towards the terrorist organizations. I have lots of Arab friends, Muslim friends,
of course. Yeah,
who are very. They're very close to me.
Absolutely.
Exactly. I respect all religions. I respect all religions, and I respect all holy, scriptures and so on. But what I'm saying is, I'm talking about the extremism, those who have been radicalized. That's the word, radicalized, who are led to believe that there will be virgins waiting for them if they blow up children and blow up buses and, fly airplanes into civilian, areas. And that's what we are facing today. And this is very, very tough. The world is a very, very hard and harsh and cruel place to live in, and in order for us to be protected, to live happy, to be able to send our children to schools without fearing for their lives, that's what we're striving for. And then you've got the mentally deranged people who go into malls and shoot people and kill students in schools. That is another problem we have, because that's the media, the play media for you, the videos that children watch of wars and people killing other people. These are their games on the market that are allowed to be sold for anyone. So a child of 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, 11, 12 plays those war games or the murder games. Just think, Brent, you're an irrational person. If you give a game that all you do is kill others, and you're 9 years old what does that do to your psyche? Ask yourself. Everyone listening to what I'm saying, ask that question. Will that child grow up to be a normal, peace-loving individual, or would he have been programmed already from these incredible murder games that they play? So I'm not surprised that every week I read and open the television and I hear that some deranged, mentally ill person killed poor children. Mm-hmm. Are you surprised, Brent?
No, not at all. Not in this day and age. There's a complete desensitization that has taken place. And people don't see human beings as people anymore. They just see them as objects, and that scares me.
Yeah.
When the lack of empathy is running rampant the way it is today, that really concerns me.
And you see, Brent, out of a population of 150 million, 200 million people in a country, just statistically, think this way. Ask any psychologist or any psychiatrist or any doctor, out of 200 million people, there must be not dozens, but thousands who are mentally imbalanced. And a little thing can tick them off in the wrong direction. And I think you will agree to this too.
I agree completely. Just let me tell folks who we're speaking with. Folks, there's only one person we're speaking to tonight, and that's Uri Geller. He's got a book out that is written by Jonathan Margolis, and the book is titled The Secret Life of Uri Geller, CIA Master Spy. Now, easy way to get this and all the links we're discussing tonight, www.nightfrightshow.com, www.nightfrightshow.com. I'm going to ask Uri in just a few seconds about his meeting with John Lennon and a little gift that was given to him. But in the meantime, for those of you that are out there that would like to speak directly with Mr. Geller, you can. And you could reach him and our show by one of two ways. You can reach him either Freedom Screen 2, which is a Skype address, or the phone number is 310-421-4053, and I'll give both those again. The Skype address, folks, Freedom Screen 2, all one word, or you could reach him via telephone at 310-421-4053. Now, we have touched a lot on peace tonight and those who aspire to bring peace to the world. One of those people is John Lennon, and I was wondering if you could tell us about your friendship with him, because this is such a beautiful story.
Well, I met John in the early 70s when I was working with Salvador Dali. I also paint, and forgive me for dropping all these names.
Oh, no, that's great. That's great. That's fine.
That's,
I love
he was an amazing surrealist painter, the best in the world.
Yes.
But we're talking about the era, the time of Studio 54, the early 70s, and I remember that it was Elton John who asked me to try to convince John Lennon to perform with him in Madison Square Garden, because he refused. He didn't want to go on stage. And I met him at that time, and I asked John, why don't you do that? I mean, you'll bring the house down in Madison Square Garden, both of you on the stage.
Absolutely.
And he said, well, Uri, I'll do it if you bring back Yoko to me. And that was the time when Yoko left him.
Yes.
And I went back to my apartment and I pasted the truth. John's picture all over, and Yoko's picture. And I really started concentrating, and I said, I've got to get her back. Anyhow, to make, again, a long story short, she came back. I don't know whether I did it or it happened coincidentally or it was synchronicity, but John agreed to perform with Elton. And then I remember the party in the Pierre Hotel, it was crazy times. And John was a great believer in UFOs. he believed in aliens. One day he calls me up. I lived on 57th Street in Manhattan, and he, of course, we all know he lived in the Dakota building in Central Park. And he says to me, Uri, I've got to talk to you. I've got something to give you. Something happened. And I said, John, what's going on? He says, let's meet in a hotel. And I remember we met in the Sherry, Netherlands, and there was a kind of a curtain where we could sit on two armchairs behind the curtain so no one would see us. And John says to me, Uri, you don't know what happened to me last night, but I have to tell you this. I was lying in bed, and this is in the Dakota building in his bedroom, of course. And suddenly I saw in the room a sphere of light. Now that really jolted me, because when I was 5 years old, I had a bizarre encounter, which I'll tell you later about, with a sphere of light. And he says to me, and then this hand came out of the sphere of light, and it was an alien's hand. So at that stage I said to John, what were you on? Did you smoke or did you take anything? He says, no, I was totally, it was really, says to me, and it gave me this thing. And then he puts his hand in his pocket, and he pulls out a strange-looking, egg-shaped, bronze-looking sphere, and he drops it into my hand, and it's heavy. It's heavier than it looks, much heavier. And he says, I want you to have this. I got it from this thing, from this alien. So for many, many, many years, I still carry this object with me everywhere I go. And you can imagine, I talk about it on radio shows, on television, if I'm being asked a question. And I get tens of thousands, well, I get about 300 emails a day. And anyone who wants to email me, you're more than welcome. My email address is on my website, and believe it or not, I answer my own emails.
I can attest to that. He does, folks.
Yeah, I carry my Blackberries and so on. But I carry this object with me. And I get many emails from people asking me, Uri Geller, why don't you have this object tested? I mean, if it's from an alien, it must be made from some material that has never been seen on this planet before. And my answer to them is, look, I don't want to test it, because I don't want to find out that this thing is made in Taiwan or in Korea. I want to believe John Lennon's words. I want to believe that this really happened. So, to me, it's a mystery object, and I want to believe that John got it from an alien.
Why not, folks? Uri Geller's our guest tonight, www.nightfrightshow.com. As always, click on tonight's guest book cover. That'll take you right to a spot. Get the book. All these stories and more are in this book, and it's just absolutely amazing. Also on www.nightfrightshow.com's website, you're going to find a link right to Uri's website, and there you can watch his uncensored documentary put out by the BBC. It's an hour and a half long, and it's fantastic. You will not be sorry. The book is written by Jonathan Margulis, by the way. Uri, when you have this object with you that he gave you, is there any vibrations coming off of it that seem abnormal, perhaps?
Not really, but I don't know if this is psychological, but in December, the object, when I kind of tilt it or shake it, that's the right word, when I shake it, it feels like there is something indeed moving inside. But that feeling lasts for just a few seconds. Again, maybe I'm creating that psychologically. But yeah, it's with me everywhere I go, and whenever people want to see it, I just pull it out, out of the little pouch it's in and show it to everyone. Like you said, he was an astonishing genius, like Michael Jackson. He was an icon, a legend. He was a phenomenon, and just bring up the words of Imagine and listen to Imagine, and you will understand what really John Lennon was about.
And I would say, Michael, as well, just in passing, when I was living in Montreal, Canada, and Michael came with the Victory Tour, I worked on his tour for a couple of days. And I'll tell you,
really?
Yes, sir. And I'll tell you, I was never, ever, ever treated as well as I was on any tour as with Michael Jackson. Nothing was too much. It was top-notch, 110%.
Yeah, when I was with Michael, say, in the streets of London, there wasn't, I mean, he loved his fans so deeply that I actually did a documentary about him, and that's also on the internet. If you put Uri Geller, Michael Jackson, and then go to videos, it'll come up. He was just a generous. When I told him that I'm doing a charity for children with AIDS in Exeter City, which is a town that is about 4 hours away from London, and I said, will you come and just talk to the people? He said, yeah, of course, if you're raising money for charity, I'll come. And he got into a plane in Los Angeles, flew all the way to England to be with me in that event in Exeter City. Incredible individual. He also asked me to design part of his album, which sadly is his last record. It's called Invincible. And if you open the booklet of Invincible, you'll find my drawings in there. Let me tell you one incident that I'll never forget anything that Michael did when I was with him. But we went into a record shop in Oxford Street. Now you can imagine there are tens of thousands of people there. So we snuck out of the limo. The limousine that waited right by the side entrance. I called up and they opened the side entrance so nobody will see him sneaking in. And of course, he was recognized. So we had to maneuver out of the shop because there were already at least 1,000 people standing outside the shop asking for autographs and so on. And as he ran out, an old lady tripped and fell. And he caught that lady falling. She must have been over 80, maybe 85. And he saw her falling. And you know what he did? He stopped in his track. And the limousine door was open already for him to get in and disappear with me. He stopped. And I said, Michael, what are you doing? And he walked over to the old lady. He picks her up. Listen to this. He picks her up. And he takes her to the limo. He puts her inside. We get inside. He closes the door. And he tells the driver to drive away. And inside the limo, he's asking her, where do you live? I'll take you home. And we took her home.
Wow. What a beautiful story.
Yep.
There
are hundreds and hundreds of these type of stories that Michael would do, the generosity that no one really knows about.
And this is the problem, isn't it? Yeah. Again, mainstream media.
And it was really the horrible accusations that really destroyed him, and this is my opinion. When you're accused of child molestation and all that, that's the pits. And he was a naive individual who never grew up. He was very shrewd when he did his music and when he worked. We all saw This Is It, the movie, and you can see what a professional genius he was. But when he was, to handle the media and the press, he did very big mistakes, huge mistakes, which led to his downfall. And that is by openly saying, I invite children to my bed, I give them milk and biscuits, and I told him, Michael, you can't say these things because I know that, you're doing nothing, you're innocent, but the world is suspicious out there. And then really what destroyed him is, sadly, again, I introduced him to Martin Bashir, who, was a presenter, a British presenter who did a documentary about Princess Diana, and Martin wanted me to arrange a meeting with Michael, and he pulled out a letter that Princess Diana wrote Martin Bashir praising him for what a great documentary he did about her. So I thought, wow, this is the right person to do the documentary with Michael. And I introduced them together. Michael foolishly didn't call any of his advisors, any of his lawyers, and he signed his life away to the documentary makers, which were ITV. Mm-hmm. So he couldn't, any celebrity today, when they do a documentary or film about them, there is a clause in the contract that they have final approval. It's just very natural. Mm-hmm. And he didn't have that. And then the mistakes in the documentary where he sat with a 13-year-old boy holding his hand and lying about his plastic surgery that mm-hmm. that these were the mistakes that I guess he was under tremendous pressures when he was being filmed. And that started the whole thing.
The whole story is just so tragic when you get down to it, and the world is so much less without him. I think it's just tragic from start to beginning, from the beginning to the end. Folks, Uri Geller tonight, www.nightfrightshow. Click on the book cover associated with tonight's guest and get this book. Before the break, we had talked about Benjamin Netanyahu and your friendship with him. I want to go back a few years and talk about the raid on Entebbe, where his brother was killed. Can we talk about your involvement with that? Or how can I put this?
Unfortunately, I can't talk about that, but I can tell you of rumors that were said. Yes, Benjamin Netanyahu's brother, Jonathan, was killed in that raid, and there are quite a few films and documentaries about him. It was an amazing raid, and just to refresh everyone's memory, Brent, do you want to tell your listeners about Entebbe just to put them in the frame, so they will know what happened?
Sure. Some Israeli hostages were taken by Palestinians, terrorists. They were taken to Uganda.
Uganda.
Yeah. And a little small city called Entebbe. And a raid was put together at the last minute to rescue them because they were going to be murdered. And talk about chutzpah. And I'll let you take it from there because it's your story.
Okay. More interesting. The rumors are, and they are in the documentary of the BBC and in the book, The Secret Life of Uri Geller. And you keep mentioning, and I thank you for that, Jonathan Margolis. Jonathan Margolis is not just an author; he's a very sharp and quite a skeptical journalist who writes for the Financial Times, which is we all know the Financial Times, and he also writes for the Guardian and many other publications. And he, if I'm not mistaken, was the European correspondent of Time magazine. I remember there was a cover story that Jonathan wrote for Time magazine. So this is serious, and a guy who researched this book so thoroughly that I was shocked when I read it. I was concerned about the revelations in the book. But going back to Entebbe, so there were rumors that I was asked to neutralize and knock out the radar systems that were along the way of the flight path of the planes that flew into Entebbe to rescue the hostages. When they asked me, I cannot confirm and I cannot deny. So my mouth is shut, zipped up on that raid and whether at all I was involved.
Forever sealed. And I just want to tell folks too, it was very successful. Everybody was taken back, and there was only one person wounded, if I'm not mistaken, and that was a KIA, and that was Benjamin Netanyahu's brother. And Benjamin,
and do you know
yes, sir?
How the BBC dealt with this documentary very cleverly? Because when they asked me, this is recent, this documentary came out only about, 5 months ago, and it played in the Sheffield Film Festival here in England, and it's going to go probably worldwide. But when the BBC asked me whether I'd be interested in this, because they were going to do it anyhow without my involvement, I had to say yes for two reasons. I had to tell them my side of the story to the point that I could talk, up to the point that I could talk, and then I thought, and this was just, I thought they will get nowhere. Which CIA agent is going to talk to them? But as you can see from the cover of the book, on the cover of the book there is a quote from a CIA operative, and the quote says, "In my experiments, Uri was superb, astonishing, a superstar." And this comes from Dr. Kit Green, former CIA Assistant National Intelligence Officer. So I thought that the BBC will get no answers, but what they did was very clever. The BBC brought in an Oscar-winning director. The director name is Vikram Jayanti. Vikram won an Oscar for a movie he did about Muhammad Ali. And with his charisma, with Vikram's charisma, personality, and the Oscar under his wing, he managed to wriggle himself into these individuals who actually speak about my powers and my experiments and my work straight into camera. So that's why this film is so mind-blowing, that he managed to bring and validate and verify all the rumors that were flying around the, I don't know, call it the mystification of Uri Geller.
Have you run into other people that have come to you and said, in private, and you don't have to give any names or anything, Uri, I have these inclinations as well, I have these powers as well, what should I do? You were
I
suspect.
Brent, I get 300 emails a day.
Yeah.
So of course, because if you read the book and if you see the documentary, they immediately say, "Oh, I've got these powers. Which direction do I go?" and so on. I get a lot of emails from ill people, from sick people who want to be healed, and I'm not a healer, so I always advise anyone who is not well, who is sick, to go immediately to a medical doctor. I get hundreds of emails from teenagers asking me to teach them how to bend a spoon. My immediate answer, and I email back, and I say to them the following: forget spoon bending. Instead, become a positive thinker. Focus on school. Create a target goal to go to university. Never ever smoke. Never ever touch drugs, and always think of success. So that's my answer. And overall, in the last, I would say, decade, my lectures, yes, I remind people what made me famous, the spoon bending, the mind reading, and so on. But most of my lectures today are about positive thinking, inspiration, motivation, and I try to tell people to try to put themselves into an attitude of gratitude. If you wake up tomorrow morning and you say to yourself, this day, today, I am going to put myself in a mode of I will be grateful for everything I have. I'm in an attitude of gratitude. If you can do that, whoever is listening to us now, you will feel an energy, a power of joy, a happiness coming onto you, into you, instilled in your mind. And the reason I'm saying this, and you know this very well, Brent.
Yes, sir.
Right now, as we speak, every 3 seconds, a baby dies from hunger somewhere around the world. Every 48 seconds, a child gets malaria somewhere around the world. So, hey, can we really complain? You have, Brent, you have your lovely radio show. You are sitting already in the driver's seat because you are a motivator yourself. People are listening to you. So you can mold minds. You can change minds of people.
Thank you, sir.
And that's what I'm about today. I try to tell people, not forcefully, because I'm not a mind police, but I try to make people understand that life is precious while we're still living, because I'm also a great believer in the afterlife, but do everything in your capacity to live a beautiful and happy life, a rewarding life, and while you're living it, try to help others who need your help.
I think that's beautiful. That's really, really beautiful. Folks, if you want to speak with Uri Geller, please do. Now's the time to call in. The phone number is 310-421-4053, 310-421-4053. The Skype address is FreedomScreen2. FreedomScreen2. And have you ever run up against pure evil when you're remote viewing, when you're, how else can I put it, doing what you do?
Look, Brent, in my opinion, pure evil is man-made, manufactured by man, by humans. I don't think there are evil forces in the universe that touch you or possess you. Look at dogs. Look at dogs. Look at animals. Look how dogs give you unconditional love.
Yes, sir.
That is so hard to materialize and achieve and create and mold around yourself. How do you give unconditional love? Is there such a thing that humans can create? I believe yes. But on the same token, humans can create evil. And you see the media when you hear about a young man that dresses up in black, gets on him 3 or 4 weapons, walks or drives into a university, compound or into a school and starts shooting innocent children, defenseless children, teachers, people. That is pure evil, in my opinion. That is pure evil. And that comes from a sick individual. So, sadly, pure evil exists in minds of some people. And, again, I don't know where your idea lies with owning weapons or not owning weapons. That's such a huge controversy.
Not a fan of that.
But if you have so many millions of weapons available to you out there, and you walk into any shop and you can buy an automatic weapon, while you have these killing games that are sold in game shops and video games and computer games, then, hey, it's there. It's very easy to create evil with those tools that are available out there for you anytime, any day.
We just talked about evil there. I would like to go in an opposite direction and something far more positive that you instigated and brought forward, something called the Red Crystal. This is an amazing story, folks.
What happened is that the head of the Israeli Red Cross, which is called Magen David Adom, Dr.
Star of David, folks, by the way.
Yes, Dr. Noam Ifrach, they came up to a dead end with the Palestinians. Both the Palestinians and the Israelis, the Palestine Red Crescent and the Israeli Red Cross, Magen David, Adom were never accepted into the International Red Cross. And the head of the Israeli Magen David Adom saw a documentary about me. This was another older documentary that the BBC did about me called Reputations, where there was a picture of me with a Senator Claiborne Pell and Al Gore bombarding the Russians to sign the nuclear treaty. So he said, well, if anyone can do it, Uri Geller can do it. And he flew to England. I, of course, invited him to my house because, after all, he is the head of MADA. That's the short, Magen David Adom, the Israeli Red Cross. And he said, look, Uri, I thought that you wanted money or charity, and said, Uri, this is the situation. We can't get into the International Red Cross. And he said, will you help? And I said, of course. So that's when a long journey started with lots of interesting people, from Condoleezza Rice to all the Palestinian negotiators, to Bonnie McLeavin Hunter, who was the head of the American Red Cross, to Arik Sharon, to Mubarak. My goodness, it was an incredible journey to achieve success. But at the end of the day, this is what happened. There was a crucial meeting where the Palestinians had to sign with the Israelis on an amicable agreement, and they were arguing, and it would not have happened if I didn't do what you're about to hear. I turned to the president of Switzerland. Her name is Micheline Calmeray, and I said to him, Micheline, will you tell your waiter to bring a spoon? And she kind of smiled because she saw me hundreds of times on television and read about me, and she knew exactly who I was. I was there with the Israeli delegation. The Palestinians were on the other side of the table. So she said to the waiter to bring in a big spoon, and which he did. I picked up the spoon and I stopped everyone from talking and said, look here! And I looked at the Palestinians, and I did my spoon bending. I stroked the spoon very gently, and the spoon started bending, and I handed the spoon into the hands of the Palestinian negotiator, and the spoon continued bending in his hand. They freaked out, and they signed the agreement.
Now, was that out of fear, Yuri? No, I'm just kidding.
What?
If you can do this with a spoon, we're doomed.
I know.
It's a wonderful story, and it's such a humanitarian cause. I commend you wholeheartedly on it, my friend. That is wonderful.
Thank you very much. There is another facet to that story, that everyone was, the media was called in, CNN came, all the networks came to the announcement that the contracts have been signed, and this was in Geneva. But from the Israeli side, Arik Sharon had to sign the document too. And Arik Sharon was sleeping, and no one could wake him up. This is before he was in a coma, obviously.
Okay. Yes.
And we didn't know how to. I didn't have Arik Sharon's personal number, but I knew Washington did, the White House did. So I called Bonnie, the head of the American Red Cross. She woke someone important in the White House. She got his number. I called up, and the ambassador called up, and Arik got up of his bed, walked to the table. All the documents were waiting for him there. He looked at them, read them, and signed it, and it was like 5 minutes before the announcement in the press conference. So it was quite a riveting moment for all of us.
That's amazing. Now, I have to ask you this. I have a spoon in my hand. I've got to do this because I want to be able to tell everybody that I've spooned with Uri Geller.
You can say that. Obviously, That's funny, but it's. Of course, I can't bend the spoon in one person's hand, directed to you. But what we can do, because I look at the clock and we have about 8 minutes. Am I correct?
Not even. We've only got about 3 before they're going to start playing music at us. Unfortunately.
Then what we will do is this. You will have me back, hopefully, say a month from now or 2 months from now. We will do a 1-hour show, and we will focus on experiments with your listeners. And that's when I'll do the spoon bending and all the phenomenon that I have demonstrated throughout the years. And I just want to sign off by saying to you, Brent, you're a lovely presenter. You know how to ask the right questions, and I enjoy these 2 hours. I'm going to go back to sleep, but we created friendship between us because we're all, Brent, we're all humanity. We're all attached to each other with an invisible spiritual thread through which you can transmit the power of love, the power of healing, the positive pure energies that our bodies and minds and souls create. And I have that connection with you now.
Thank you, sir, and I with you. Often I'll say to folks that join me on the air, I'll say, if it takes, I get ghost stories from all around the world, or stories from around the world, and I say, if it takes us sitting around a campfire telling ghost stories to get us to come together and stop shooting each other, so be it. But I want to extend that now and say, if it takes us bending spoons together to achieve the same goal, then so be it. Let peace reign supreme.
I love that. And it all comes down to the Matrix, when Keanu Reeves is taught by children how to bend the spoon, and then comes the famous line, there is no spoon, it's your mind that bends.
That's beautiful. Thank you, my friend. Get some sleep, and we'll have you back on as soon as you'd like to come back on. Once again, folks, the book is called The Secret Life of Uri Geller, CIA Master Spy, wonderfully written by Jonathan Margulis. And it says here right on the front cover, in my experiments, Uri was superb, astonishing, a superstar. Now, you know who wrote that? Dr. Kit Green, former CIA Assistant National Intelligence Officer. Most of the stories we've been speaking about tonight are all contained in this book, www.nightfrightshow.com. Just click on tonight's guest book cover, as I say all throughout. Get the book. You will not be sorry. These are things that, that seem to be mysterious, but really it's all part of the human condition. And we all share that intrinsically. All the URLs that we've discussed tonight for Uri's website, for the various documentaries, will be on nightfrightshow.com. Thank you, Uri, for joining us tonight. God bless you.
God bless you too, and my love to all of you.
Thank you. Shalom, my friend.
Shalom. Brent, can you hear me now or not?
I can, but we're still live on air, my friend. Can I say you right back or call you right back?
No, I'll say good night. Lots of love to you, and we'll email each other.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Bye now.